Uduak was a native woman of Income, a town on the right bank of the Cross River, consisting of 5 compounds, separate one from another, by about half a mile of bush. Uduak was a fine girl, but preferred to enjoy herself rather than to get married, which would mean too hard work. She used to walk from one town to another and attend all the dances and plays, as she was a good singer and dancer. She always wore a cloth of the latest pattern and a silk handkerchief round her head, with plenty of hairs from the elephant's tail round her neck, and strings of beads round her waist. She also wore a piece of black braid tied round each ankle and some rings on her fingers. These are the signs of a girl who is popular with young men. Uduak had men friends in every town she visited, but she never stayed long with any of them, being what is called a working woman. At last, she conceived, and when she was about 8 months gone with child, she happened one day to go into the forest to gather firewood to cook her morning food. While she was thus engaged, a branch fell from a tree and hit her on the belly. This immediately brought on her confinement, and she gave birth to twins in the forest. The firstborn was a girl, to whom she gave the name of Ero, and the second was a boy, whom she named Agbo. When Uduak found that she had given birth to twins, she was very much ashamed of herself and was afraid to take both the babies back to the town, as they would be killed by the people, and she would be turned out of the town and left to starve in the bush. She therefore decided to take the firstborn child, Ero, back with her, but Agbo, she left on the ground underneath a tree. Very soon after Uduak had departed, the soldier ants discovered Agbo and quickly covered him, commencing to eat him. The bites of the soldier ants made the child cry. All this time, a hawk had been circling around, high up in the air, searching for food, and when he saw Uduak had deserted her baby, he swooped down and carried the infant off with him to the top of a high tree. The hawk, seeing what a fine child Agbo was, thought he would try to save his life, and immediately set about removing the ants from Agbo's body. He lit a fire and boiled some water, with which he washed the child, and the ants very quickly disappeared. The hawk looked after Agbo until he grew up. One day, Uduak sent her daughter Ero to get her some fire, and Ero, after wandering about, eventually found herself at the hawk's house, where she saw Agbo sitting down. Ero was so taken with Agbo's good looks that she continued to stare at him without speaking, until at last Agbo said, "Why do you look at me like that?" But Ero did not reply and picked up some fire, continuing to stare at Agbo. Then he repeated his question and added, "Do I resemble either your father or your mother? If so, let the fire you are holding go out." And the fire went out at once. Ero then took up some more fire, and Agbo put the same question to her again, and the fire Ero was holding went out a second time. This was done 3 times, each time with the same result. Then Ero ran home to her mother and reported what she had seen and said, "What a fine boy Agbo was." When Uduak, the mother, heard about the fire, she knew at once that Agbo must be her son whom she had deserted and left to die in the forest. She therefore made up her mind that she would go and see him. The following morning, she rose at first cockcrow and went to the hawk's house, where she found Agbo and took a great fancy to him. Uduak wanted to get Agbo away from the hawk and keep him for herself, but did not quite see how it could be done. At last, she thought of the tortoise, who was well known throughout the country as a clever and resourceful person, and went to him and told her story. Now, the tortoise was a lot caster, and when he had cast lots, he decided that the best thing that Uduak could do was to go to a house and lie down, pretending to be dead. The tortoise told her that if she did this, the hawk, hearing that she was dead, he would send Agbo to his dead mother's side to mourn her. Then Uduak would be able to seize him. The mother, having paid the tortoise for his advice, went away and did what she had been told to do. When the hawk heard that Uduak was dead, he told Agbo that the next day he should go and cry at his mother's side. So, when the morning came, the hawk dressed Agbo up, and he started off to cry. When he arrived at the house, Agbo wanted to sit at the head of his mother, but the people who had assembled would not allow this and told him to sit at Uduak's feet, which Agbo did. Directly he sat down, his mother jumped up and seized him and said she would not let him go again. Very soon afterwards, the hawk arrived on the scene to take Agbo away, but his mother would not part with him. Then the hawk became angry and addressed the people as, "Here is a working woman who, several years ago, gave birth to twins in the forest and, being naturally ashamed of herself, deserted her baby boy and left him on the ground to be eaten by the soldier ants. I saved the boy's life and have brought him up and fed him. I now demand that he shall be returned to me at once." When the people heard this, they said to the hawk, "If you will let Uduak have her son back, we will give you a slave in his place," but the hawk refused this offer. Then they offered him cows, sheep, goats, and pigs, all of which the hawk refused. The people then suggested giving some cocks and hens to the hawk, to which he replied that, although he would not accept them for Agbo, they were getting nearer to what he possibly might accept. At last, the people offered him a large basket of eggs, whereupon the hawk immediately closed the bargain, handed over Agbo to his mother, and flew away with the basket of eggs in his claws. The next morning, the hawk started off with his basket of eggs and left one egg in every house all around the village until all the eggs in the basket were exhausted. He then returned home in the evening with the empty basket. After a few months had elapsed, the hawk said to himself, "The time has now come for me to take my revenge upon the people for taking my boy Agbo from me." So he flew from town to town, taking chickens from every compound. This is the reason why hawks always take chickens wherever they find them, and in those days, the people never thought of making any trouble with the hawk, as he had a right to the chickens. But nowadays, when a hawk swoops down and seizes a chicken, the people shout out and try to kill it, as they have forgotten the story of how the twin child Agbo was redeemed by a basket of eggs.